What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories that are going to get you moving, get you thinking, get you reflecting a little bit, and hopefully put a smile on your face. Today, we have the honor of hosting Natasha Swartley, a retired Navy veteran, ultra runner, and medic. Natasha's journey is a testament to resilience, dedication, and the transformative power of endurance sports. As a certified wilderness EMT, she provides invaluable medical support to trail runners, ensuring their safety and well-being during some of the most challenging races. In this episode, we're going to delve into Natasha's military experience, her passion for ultra running, her experience as a medic, and how she's making a difference in the running community and inspiring others to push their limits. But before we get to our interview, I want to ask for your help. Help us grow this channel, help us grow the show by liking, subscribing, sharing any content that's resonating with you. Right? It's free, and what that does is it helps us reach more people around the world. So do that, and then sit tight and get ready for an engaging motivational conversation that highlights the incredible strength and determination of extraordinary people popping up around us in ordinary places. Enjoy this interview with Natasha Swartley. Tasha, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. How are you today?
Oh, good morning, Jared. So good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Fantastic, and even more upbeat with your energy coming across to me. I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm honored to get to share your story with our community.
Thanks. No, I'm super stoked. I appreciate you reaching out. I don't even remember how we actually connected, but regardless, we're here.
Yeah.
Um, Even cooler, for those that are gonna see this, like we both live in our campers, folks. This is the way of life. This
Mm.
is this is how it goes. So I love meeting other fellow full timers. So this is rad. This totally made my day and even made me even more excited.
You,
So yay!
you know what I think? Here's something that we've come across, Tasha, in our 4 years. You said you've been living out yours for 6 years, so you're ahead of us. We're at 4. The one thing I love is when you cross people that are also in motion all the time, right? Because both of us can pick up our
Mhm.
houses and move. There's no like, these are your neighbors for the next 20 years because you got to pay off this mortgage.
Yeah.
It's almost like the universe is crossing your paths with an intention. Like there's something to learn here. Like there's something
Mhm.
Tasha's supposed to share with you or your path would not have crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I too, like, I believe that like everything happens for a reason. So every person, good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to describe it, every person that crosses your path, every event that has happened is all just something that helps build this chapter that we're writing of life,
Mm.
or this book of life, and each chapter is just another segment to kind of reflect on. No, and I love this. Like, yeah, I've been doing this 6 years and I meet a lot of folks. More so out here on the West Coast than when I was on the East Coast, especially at my age. I'm 42. Not too many people do full-time camper living at 42. Especially on the East Coast. Out here, it's in Colorado, it's a little bit more known, but no, it's awesome to meet other full-timers, but also other folks like yourself who've got a background in like I don't want to say military service, but just
Mhm.
like um service to
Yeah.
country and to community. And it like and myself, I'm a Navy vet, and like there's something about going from fighting for freedom and now being able to embellish in that said freedom,
Mm.
and being able to travel this country. Like everybody always wants to go overseas. I'm sorry, like I do, don't get me wrong, like I love going overseas, but man, I've been able to be in all 50 states already, and holy cow, folks, like this country is ungodly. It is unbelievably beautiful here.
I love what you said there, Tasha, because I think as you were saying, I was thinking, I think that's one of the things that sometimes people who have served do get stuck in post career
Hmm.
is they don't go, like you said, embellish and live all the freedoms that they've sacrificed for.
Hmm.
Right? They kind of they serve, they have this life that travels them around the world and they see all this stuff. And then when they get out, they kind of fall in with kind of like the rest of society. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes it's good and sometimes it's a detriment because there's that piece of them that maybe isn't fulfilled. Whereas like what you're doing, what we're doing, like we are free. And this is
Yeah.
exactly why we did what we did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see it too. Like, and I know that a lot of folks who separate from service or, excuse me, military or first responder services, you know, you spend so many years of dedication to so much that when you do part ways, you do lose a part of yourself. I mean, I went through it after I retired. So I did 20 years in the Navy from
Wow.
July 2001 to August of 2021. Um, and when I retired, like, oh, the freedom was great initially. I was able to stay busy and really embellish in all the time that I now had. But when it hit me that I had nothing but time and no purpose again in life,
Mm,
like I think that's why a lot of folks go from their services, especially in the first responder or military,
hmm
where they go from complete dedication and obligation and commitment. And then when you give them that freedom, trying to redefine yourself or repurpose yourself is the hardest thing I think we all maybe can agree that we
hmm
face. You know, because the folks that say, like, give me a call, I'll be your best pal forever. And like, they may be, but they're so consumed, like the folks that are still in are so consumed with still dedicating that time and service and sacrificing so much that now we're on this side and we have nothing but time and it just ruminates. And I know I went through a pretty bad period post retirement, like, and I'm still, you know, I'm 3.5 years out and still trying to like find that balance of like what my purpose is.
mm
Um, but I think like that's why like some folks when they do come out of that realm, you know, and they retire or separate, whatever the case may be, that they feel it necessary to be like constantly consumed still, not just to support their families, but also because like that's the life we lived,
hmm
is being constantly swarmed, consumed, and stressed. And so when I finally got into this life and settling still, you know, I find myself like trying to stay busy constantly.
Yeah.
So even just recently, I had to take some weight off my plate with two other commitments that I was trying to commit to for volunteering at my local fire department as an EMT, but also like as a wildland firefighter. And I just didn't have it.
Mm.
I mean, the passion is there, but the time is not. And it was just burning me like hard.
Yeah.
So, you know, that dedication is still there, but the recognition is like it's an eye opener
Yeah.
to be able to recognize like, oh, I have too much on my plate.
Yeah. No, that's growth, right? And
Mhm.
all right, before we get too deep in this, Tasha, I gotta warm you up. We can't like I can't even keep up with you. Like we can't just hit the trail run and expect me to keep up with you right off the bat. We gotta warm up. You ready to get warmed up here, my friend?
Always warmed up. Sorry.
No, you come in warm. All right, here we go. First warm up question: sunrise or sunset? Which one you choosing?
Ooh, sunset.
Why is that?
I love to see the day come to a close and know that I had like a day full of gratitude.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Favorite
Yeah.
book?
Ooh. Hmm. I've read a lot. Most recently, some of the ones that I've read were a lot of ultra running style books. Um,
Give me
what
one.
was, oh my gosh.
I just finished Born to Run for the second time, so I need a new one.
Aw,
That book's
oh my
so good.
God. That's such a good book. Mike is a gem. Lewis and oh my God, what Barefoot Ted, they are such characters in real
Really?
life. Oh
That's
yeah,
so
they're amazing dudes.
that's so awesome you actually know them. They're people
Yes,
in a book to me at this point.
yes, no, they're fantastic. You know what? Actually, God, why can't I think of the name of it? So Hillary Allen wrote a book, Out and Back. What's the most recent one that I read, and it sticks out with me quite a bit. Just her tenacity after a pretty severe near-death experience during a trail race, and her tenacity to come back. Recently, she actually just ran a marathon out in Salida, Colorado, and
Mhm.
podiumed. So her tenacity to come back to the field after near death was just incredible. So that book, Out and Back, is a really powerful book.
All right. Song that's stuck in your head.
Legendary
Oh, you like that one.
is such a good song. Like it's been my motto lately, so I'm just gonna stick with it.
All right. Favorite quote or a quote that's kind of stuck with you throughout life?
Um, Funny. So when I was 16, I was in a bad relationship. Go figure. And you're 16. What's a good relationship at
Right.
16? But for some reason, this quote, I said this to myself and I repeat it many times years over and over, was that love is not how you feel about the person you're with, it's how you feel about yourself when you're with them.
Mm, that's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty old too. So there's that.
And that one sticks with you.
It does. It does. Because you can love so many people, and truly genuinely have love for a lot of people. But I believe that the truest love is when you feel like you are your solid self, not completed, but just that you are freely yourself in their presence.
Ah, that's a good one. All right, you get to have
Mm,
dinner with one person. They could be maybe have passed on or still with us. Who would you have dinner with, and what would you want to ask them?
Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, that's a new one. I've never had that one before.
No. Oh,
No.
she's an icon. She's an icon. She went out way too soon, and I think like she was just an icon for her era, her world. She was brazen, she was bold, she didn't care, but she was beautiful and very talented, very skilled. But she was also very delicate, and I think I would love to be able to ask her like, what can I do to make you feel stronger? Like how can we build this confidence up? How can we
Ooh.
like help you see what we see, or at least keep you around so when natural death comes, like you can reflect on all the great things that you brought to this world.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a
she
good.
she's so amazing.
Yeah. Have you been interested with her since you were younger?
uh like middle aged, like
Okay.
20s. I love that era, the 50s, and how women were just kind of like coming out. Like I do love me some Betty Page.
Yeah.
And they were rebelling, and um there's a lot of strength with that, coming out and saying like, no, this is what I want to do, this is how I feel. I'm going to wear this dress, or I'm going to wear these pants, or I'm going to wear nothing and make it look
Yeah.
great. But also that like there wasn't conformity in how we should look with some of these icons. I might be steering off course, but like there's so much social influence about like how a person, and this is generally speaking, but a person should look, or idealized to look. And when I look at icons like those women, Betty Page or Marilyn Monroe, they were very curvy and they were natural. And I'm a big believer, like we're humans, right?
Yeah.
And we can't continue to stress ourselves out trying to look unhuman or perfect when there's just so much more to life than just what's on the outside.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And the impact that creates when we do accept that and when we see each
Mhm.
other fully that way is fantastic. And hopefully we'll get there again.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
But I think you're on the right path, right? I think it starts with us in our
Mhm.
circles impacting it there.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, you feeling warmed up, Tasha?
body's warmed up. Let's rock and roll.
All right, talk to me about pre-military Tasha. What led to you deciding to join the service? Because if you're 42 and you've already been retired for a few years, that means you went in pretty early in life.
Oh yeah. Um, so 18, barely graduated high school. Never played sports. Well, let me not say never. I played kickball when I was 6, and then like a season of soccer when I was 13. And
Yeah.
like there's my sports history. Um, and like I never really applied myself in school. I was doing half day vocational school for graphic arts and design. My last 2 years of high school, going into school like stoned and drunk when it was really not ideal or legal. I grew up in Pennsylvania, rural area, small town. My parents are divorced by the time I was like 16, going on 17, where they were separated. Um, so like it wasn't ideal. But I knew that like when I was graduating, so my uncle served in the Navy during Vietnam. He never spoke of it. And then I had a grandfather, he passed away years before I was born, but he was in the Air Guard during World War II. And that's like all the military history in my family. My dad was a truck driver, still drives
Okay.
locally to this day. My stepmom now works in, oh, she works at home, but also works as like a church kindergarten teacher or pre-K teacher. And then my mom has always been working in some sort of rehabilitation or elderly nursing homes. So I don't come from like a college background. None of my family has ever gone anywhere beyond high school. My mom quit in her
Sure.
10th grade year. So when it was my turn, and I'm the oldest of three daughters, I have two younger sisters, and I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like looking around at a small town, and I already didn't fit in. In my high school years, I felt very much like an outcast all the time. And so I was like, you know what? The recruiters keep coming, and the Navy recruiter was kind of cute. So I was like, let me go check this out.
Nice.
The guy I was dating, the guy I was dating in high school, I remember him saying some things like, "Oh, I don't think you'll make it through boot camp." And like, I didn't know I had this fire in me. And like, part of the family life that I grew up in too is my mom's not well. She's always been a heavy drinker.
Okay.
And then with my dad driving truck, he didn't do over the road, but there would be days where he didn't come home at night because of his work. So it wasn't horrible, but it was definitely not ideal. So there's a lot of fuel with that fire um, that kind of brought me to where I am today. That I use it as fuel because I
Mm,
don't want to be that way. So
sure.
at 18, I'm graduating high school, and I'm like, I have nowhere to go. I don't even know how to do college. I mean, I knew nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was like, all right, well, fuck it. I'm going to join the Navy. That's really how it happened. And here's how it went. I graduated Emmaus High School in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, June 18th, 2001. June 30th, 2001, I took myself on a trip. I grew up an hour south of New York City. So went to New York City as like my graduation trip. And then July 14th, 2001, I signed up, and July 25th, I was out the door on my way
Oh,
to boot camp.
nice.
Yeah. And it's been like that's how it started.
Yeah.
I was like, get me out. Get me out. I just want to
Yeah.
go. I don't want to think.
That's good. I mean, that's honestly to me, that's one of the reasons we have the military is to give people a route to change their lives.
Mm,
Right. I mean, that's one of the best benefits besides the other ones, defense and protection and stuff, is that like people can literally recreate themselves there and make something that nobody else knew was possible.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I, for one, will tell you, I'm so thankful I did what I did. There's no telling, like the route that I was going was very unhealthy. So there's
Sure.
no telling where I'd be to this day had I
What
not just made that. whim decision.
You know what though? But and that's I hope that our younger listeners hear that, right? Because I think there's
Mhm.
such a emphasis in today's world of get data, do research, analyze, and sometimes you just got to go with whatever you think is right at the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen to your heart. Honest to God. There's too much information that's out there.
Mhm.
You get flooded, you get overflowed, and then it just makes it no wonder we have fucking anxiety. There's too much. Just
Yeah.
simplify it, take everything out of the picture, and just go for it. Like, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen? Oh, it's 4 years that, oh, you're going to commit to 4 years. Great. You know what? You're getting paid for the 4 years. You don't have to worry about benefits. You're going to get a
Mhm.
college benefit out of it.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
gonna
and like,
make new friends.
yeah. And then, but your life is going to be forever changed for the positive.
Well,
Absolutely.
and we have this idea that every decision we make is so monumental to the world. And you realize
Mhm.
it's not like none of us are that important. And you know
No.
what? Those 4 years are going to go so fast. And when you're in your 50s, you're going to look back and be like, wow, it was such a small percentage of my life.
Yes.
And that goes for
Yeah.
any decision you make. You want to go to college? Don't go to college. Don't stress over like either way, you can do the opposite in 4 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
You can always go back. So I
Yeah.
love that you just follow that. And I get the feeling that's not a one off in your life, Tasha. I get the feeling that
No.
you make some decisions just based on how you're feeling in the moment.
That is a fact. It still carries forward. I think for my parents, especially my dad, I'm very much closer to my dad,
Sure.
and I think like for him, there have been some moments where he's just like, just please make sure you're making the right decision and please be careful. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah. Well, think about this. You're undefeated in surviving all of your decisions,
yes,
right? Like you're unbeaten.
yes,
You've done them all.
yeah, yep. So far,
Yeah. So that's our
so
track record.
far.
Why would we not bet on ourselves based off our past success? We're still here.
Exactly, exactly. And that just that opens other doors of like realizing that like going back to what you said, like these decisions that we make are just such small little paragraphs in the book that we're writing, and each chapter is just a new segment of life. So it's like, okay, 4 years. Well, what was I doing at 18 to 22? Well, it wasn't college.
Yeah.
Like, um, but what I was doing from that age, and then it was just so far off when I'm from what I ever imagined I would ever do. And I'll be honest, not coming from a college type background, like with my family, I'm actually really happy that I did what I did. Because yet again, like without a degree, I have enough credits to apply for a degree now,
Right.
but without one, I'm still successful. And that's the other half of it is like there's this drive of like, go do go do 12 years of school, get your education, and then further your education because you need a college degree. But at 18, like let's be honest, 18 to 22, you're how do I rephrase this? Most of the frontal lobe isn't even fully developed until age 25.
Right.
So, like, you're not going to fully know exactly what it is that you're going to be passionate about. And then, honest to God, like, we just do a lot of what people think that or what we should
Mm,
be doing, what we think people want us to do,
right.
and forget that we actually have passions and you deserve to follow those passions
Mm.
and experiment with life. Like, we're only blessed with this one period. So, listen to what your heart has to say, go do it because at the end of the day, like you could still go to college at 42 years old. You
It's
still
still
can
there.
redefine. Yeah, you can redefine your whole life over and over and over again for as many times as you want. Just because at 18 you just got out of school doesn't mean that you have to actually settle into that career. And
Right.
I think that was the underlying, like not knowing it at 18, but in reflection now, I knew that I was destined for things that were very different from the rest of the world. And like I just felt too big for where I was at. So I was like, I'm just going to go with this.
Yeah. Let me stop you there for a second, Tasha. I want to go back to that. You were destined for bigger things in the world. What made you feel that? And how, and do you remember when you first felt that? Like if you were a little person or where you were in life when you were like, wait a second, there's more to me.
Um, I think it was actually later in life, you know, and
Okay.
it was definitely later in life, and I think it was after retirement that it really started to hit because I was redefining who I was. You know, I spent 18 years of my life under my parents' roof, and then I went in 20 years into the Navy. So I was under, federal roofing, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but so I had a suicidal moment. Didn't pull the trigger, but I had a loaded shotgun sitting next to
Ooh.
me, and it was I was ready. I was just done. But what I didn't realize was that I wasn't done. And it was in that moment that I was like, no, like I have so much more to give. Like I knew when I left for the military, I knew when I was a teenager that I was an outcast, right? I didn't really fit into the society I was growing up in. But I knew that like my personality and like who I was just not conformative, if you
Hmm.
will.
Yeah.
Um, like I was conformative enough like to make it through 20 years in the Navy, but like redefining myself, I think opened my eyes and like just illuminated the fact that I have so much more to give. Like I do have purpose here. And like what helped me realize that was like the um the joy that people have like when I'm able to bring joy into a room, or I've been told I light up a room
Hmm.
when I enter. So I'm like, okay, like people need that. People need light. And I think that was my defining moment, was realizing that like, in my late 30s, almost 40, so post retirement, I retired at 38. So I think it was then that I was like, no, I have so much more to give. Like I just have a very special piece in this world, and we all do,
Hmm.
um, that people deserve to have a part of me as well as I deserve to have a part of them. So, and there was other factors that kind of kept me from enacting on my ideations, but that was one big one of them that I now have a clearer, reflection to.
Well, first off, thank you for sharing. And second, I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you found that thought process at that time you needed it.
Thanks. Thanks. And me too. Absolutely, me too. And had I not, this world would be shit right now because I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying all of this.
Well, I think sometimes that's where we get stuck, right? Because it's
Mhm.
not that situation is unfortunately not abnormal for many of our veterans, whether they're coming out of military or first responders of all branches. And I can't think of something I would want to impact more so than helping people realize that after giving for that length of their life, there's still more, right? Like that isn't our
Yeah.
pinnacle. Like there's more. And to get to the point where we serve for 30 years, 25 years, 40 years, and when we leave, we think the only option is to take our own life. I hope we can start doing better for people, right? And
Mhm.
get them to realize, like, wait, it's okay, kind of is your analogy earlier. It's okay to turn this chapter in your book because there's a whole nother one getting ready to be written, but you got to be
Yes.
here to write it.
Yes. 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 And it's redefining, and I think like because since I retired, I've gotten deeper and deeper into ultra running, and but it's redefining that purpose.
Yeah.
Knowing it takes a very special soul to walk into a recruiter's office, pass MEPS, go to boot camp, do the full 4 years minimum.
Yeah.
It takes an even more special person to go, longer, and 20 years. And this is first responders, military,
Yeah,
anybody
for
who's
sure.
in this kind of service. And it takes a very, very special kind of person to sacrifice everything And when I say everything, we're talking about your life. That
Hmm.
is all we have. And when we walk out those doors for the very last time, like that part of our life, it seems like it gets misunderstood. And folks who have never been in a service um, really don't understand that comradeship. They don't understand that unification, or what goes on in somebody who's dedicated that kind of time or who's been willing to die for others. Um, Not just family, but strangers, people who don't know them. And it takes, and it takes a toll that when you walk out those doors and you don't know what's next, like you can plan, you can think, you can dream, but you don't know how you're going to respond emotionally. And when you take all that away, it really empties you. And I think like part of that problem that we face, for those of us that are facing these issues, is how do we redefine our purpose? And our purpose is to serve. And so finding other ways to involve ourselves in the community and serve our community. And there's so many other things, but it's just trying to navigate that realm and be understood in that sense too, is like the emotions that rise. People can't really like understand that still. So trying to navigate the emotions of knowing that you're missing something, or that you're missing out on things, like FOMO is a real thing.
Hmm.
um, but also like feeling like useless. So I found that coming into the trail running community was me redefining my purpose. And I try to, for other folks that I meet that are kind of facing the same thing, is like I try to open the doors of like volunteer, get involved with community projects, volunteer at trail race events, running events. There's events going on all the time. And volunteering is still being an act of service, which, still fulfills that need to be needed.
I think I agree with you there. And I think we have to give ourselves grace that it's okay to move from one chapter to the next, that it's okay that like what's happened in our past isn't our highlight reel. Like there's more highlights to create, but they only happen actively, right? Like you said,
Mhm.
getting involved in something. I think to me, one of the biggest things for that helps me is when I live disciplined, right? Because so much of your life is disciplined. Then you
Mhm.
make this switch and now you have all the freedoms. You can get up whenever you want. You can work out or not work out. You know, there's no accountability now except to you. So I think it's
Mhm.
still important that we apply discipline to our life, right? Like we have something that we're holding ourselves accountable to, which helps fulfill that need a little bit. And then when we can,
Absolutely.
and then when we find a group that also holds them accountable, now we've replaced one group of people doing this with another group in a whole new realm, and we thrive again, right? Because we're back doing what drew us to the service in the first place.
Absolutely. And the discipline is a huge factor. Holding ourselves accountable. We've been held accountable for so many years. So doing the same for ourselves, we deserve that, right? We deserve
Mhm.
that self-compassion. We don't deserve to be hard on ourselves. Like we only get this one shot. Go enjoy it. But yeah, like let me tell you that discipline can be very challenging at times, especially when you find yourself in a new sport, a new hobby, etc. Um, it can be very challenging, because you're holding it to yourself and no one else. And what I found on this side, after retirement, is there isn't a lot of accountability. So holding yourself to it, you're the strongest person you're ever going to be in that moment.
Yeah,
So hold yourself accountable to it, because nobody else is going to give a shit. Like, not
right.
not to be rude, but they're
But
not.
they don't have to.
They're
Like
too
they're worried
involved.
about themselves.
Exactly.
Talk to me.
Exactly.
All right,
So
Tasha. So that's one of the things that drew me to you was the ultra running, right? Because I've really taken up trail running in our travel life. Kind of we were talking about off air. The fact we move around all the time, we don't have access to gyms and stuff, which is fine because Otis, our golden doodle that we adopted actually in Sedalia, Colorado, is very active. So I get to run with him a lot.
Hmm.
It's kind of been my new passion because it makes me want to quit, to be honest with you. It makes
Yeah.
me question life. Look at that kitty there.
Yeah, this is
And
Hermes. Say
Hermes,
hi,
that's
bud.
a good name. Hey, Hermes. And that's how I kind of came across you is through the ultra running community. So talk to us about how did you get into that and like what was your first experiences with it?
So the Navy made me run, which going back, I didn't do sports. So that was terrible. I was part of what we called the 3 Mile a Year Club for my early years. And then in 2008, so I went in July 2001, but in 2008, like I was recruiting and my uniform started getting a little snug, and it's
Mm.
in my mind, it was cheaper to lose weight than it is to buy new uniforms. And anybody who's ever had to buy military style uniforms knows that that's true. Um, so I started training for a 5K, which was at that time the longest distance I ever ran. So fast forward a few years, I went through the cycle of doing half marathons to marathon. After a marathon, I swore I would never run again. It was so hard. Like I got back into weightlifting, like heavy weightlifting, and then I missed the 5K. So I went right back to it, cycled back into running. And 2019, I ran my first 50 miler. I went right from training for it was a group, it was supposed to be a relay event.
Okay.
Um, and I dropped from the group and I was like, you know what? Well, I'm already on a schedule to run like 60 miles in this relay. So how about I just run a 50 miler? Sure. So um so I ran Tillamook Burn 50 miler. It was my very first ultra. I didn't even run a 50K. I think the longest distance I ran up to that point was a marathon. And it was really tough. At one point, I think it was mile 37, I threw a sandwich at my best friend and told her, fuck off. I was so naive to the ultra, like just not understanding really anything about nutrition, electrolytes, cramping, like nothing what I know now.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we all know the world kind of took a dump in 20 to 22 and I retired. And then, like I said, like I had a real downfall. And it was in that moment that I was like, okay, I got to do something. And when I ran that ultra and doing all those trail runs, I just felt very at peace in nature.
Mm.
I just felt like naturally myself. And I felt like I could be out there for hours without ever feeling strained, stressed, worried, concerned, etc. So I was like, let me go back to this trail thing. So I started back up from scratch. I was under a coach named Aaron Stacy. He lives in California. He's a police officer and ultra runner in Northern California. And so he coached me up to my first 100 miler. So
Oh,
last year I finally finished 100. So I basically started from scratch in 2022. Um, so from ground zero to 100 in the last 2.5 years. It took me finishing the 100 was my third attempt at running 100 miles.
what
And
race was it?
I finished at Folsom
Oh,
100
okay.
miler.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ray Sanchez puts on an incredible event, and it was tough. Um, Mother Nature was not having it that day, so it was like 50s, raining, pouring, gray.
Yeah.
Nothing about the race was at all scenic. In fact, it really challenges a lot of folks. And I tend to be a spring runner, so I'm training through winter a lot, which really sucks sometimes. But it really prepared me. And then, like, having been humbled the two times before, making it to mile 70 and 71 and like bonking hard, really taught me a valuable lesson of like, okay, I know I can do this, but how bad do I want it? And So I finished, and then I that was the last race I ran was last year in May, and then I just ran Black Canyons a month ago. Black Canyons 100K. That was a very humbling experience. For anybody who knows, like Aravaipa races, Black Canyons is a well-known, really fast 100K. Um, but what they don't show you is the terrain.
Oh, now is that Colorado?
No, this is in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Just it's so in the Black Canyons of Arizona. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. But I was very quickly humbled. I went in with some time goals, and like what I need to reflect on is that anytime I've gone in with a time goal, I've not done well. So when I finished my 100 miler in Folsom, I had zero time goal. I was just like, I just want to finish this thing,
Yeah.
you know. I ended up placing third female when I finished my 100.
Ah,
So I'm like,
yes.
okay, and when I went into Black Canyons, I had two time goals. One being much faster than the first time I ran 100K. The second was just to be around the same time. Well, both those went out the window. And there was just so many things that were going not normal for me. And so, but that also like opened a new door because my next race is Tahoe 200.
Yeah. What?
Yes,
200.
200 mile.
Yes.
And like, let me rephrase it. It's not a race. It's a run. It's an event. It's a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Um, but what I experienced at Black Canyons, as hard as it was, because I wanted to drop at mile 24, like I had it. I was bawling my eyes out. I fell twice, once into a cactus.
Ah,
My nutrition, like my body was just repelling anything. Like I wasn't vomiting, I wasn't nauseous, but nothing wanted to go down except liquids. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then going back to what we talked about, that military service, that
mm,
discipline, um, there's one thing I ruminated on for so many years, and like a lot of people they praise me, and I'm very grateful for it, and I'm very responsive to it. But for doing hard things, like I put bombs on jets, like I worked hard
right.
in the 20 years that I was in, and I reflected on those years of like and in the moment, I'm bawling my eyes out at mile 24, just outside the aid station after falling yet again. And I was like, bitch, you've done harder things. Like, you've gone 20 hours,
Ah,
like
yeah.
putting bombs on jets and like
Yeah.
working on a flight deck in gear that was heavier than what you're wearing now with no food and like stress out the wazoo. And all I have to do is just eat, run, like, or eat, drink, take care of my feet and move forward. It's the only four things I got to do right now. And you're crying.
Yeah.
So, like, I dug so deep in this event. And so that was my valuable lesson is like, because when Tahoe comes up, those things are going to happen. But also, like, in life, those things are going to
Mm,
happen.
yeah.
So knowing that you have a reservoir so much deeper than what you think and erasing any limits or expectations of yourself, like really opens the doors to so many more possibilities of what you can and are willing to do.
It's so important what we tell ourselves in those moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like we all have things we've done that are harder than whatever we're facing. Like very few of us are going to face something today that's so insurmountable we've never seen it.
Hmm.
But what we tell ourselves is so critical to how we're going to respond.
Hmm.
So you're 24 miles in, you're a quarter of the way.
I know.
And and you do it.
Oh, I did. I did. And my coping mechanism is to laugh through it. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, was it painful? Yeah. Yeah, actually, like mile 7 is when I spilled the first time and I like dove into the rocks and like body rolled against a cactus. So I had like
Oh,
needles in my elbows and my hips and my legs. And like it wasn't until mile 19 that I could actually like pull the rest of them out, and like so nothing was comfortable. But for some reason, it's just like, okay, so I rolled into a cactus. Going back to what we mentioned about that little mini moment in life, it's just so minor. It's so, so minor, and after I spilled that second time, I spilled, like, I literally like face dove onto the rocks. And
Oh,
like, thank God I landed on my side, just my side, right?
right.
And like, and I just sat there, like, and people, like, so many kind folks were like coming out of the aid station because it was literally less than a quarter mile. I could see the tent. And like they were coming out of the aid station, seeing me sit there, and they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I just need a moment, guys, a moment." And like like in that moment, it's okay to let it all go. In fact,
Mm,
get it out of your system. Whatever you got to do, cry, stomp, throw a temper tantrum, get it out. Because, like, once you remove that toxicity from your system, you're making room for the good things to come in. And so my body was responding. It's the first time I've had a cry session in the middle of a run in a long time. So
yeah.
it was due time. And so, like, by crying and like just sitting on this rock, looking at the tent that I just left and contemplating, like, fuck this, like, I'm ready to go home, and realizing that, like, no, no, I'm not, because I've done this before. I've done harder things before. So, like, just recognizing that, and like being able, like, and I think what the emotions do is because emotions, sweat, tears, all come out, right? And tears remove, a lot of people don't realize this, but like sweating and crying are actually two of the best ways you can relieve your body of toxic emotions and toxic hormones.
Sure.
So that's why you feel better after a good cry or after a good sweat, because you've relieved your body of these things physically. So now, by reducing how much shit you have in your body, you just made space for all the good things to come in, so you can see the light and
Yeah.
embrace those good things.
I,
So,
you're 100% right. And that's so same with our thought, right? As soon as we start telling ourselves good stuff about ourselves, we start going back to like Goggins. I don't know if you follow Goggins much, being a former Navy person as well. He talks about it as his
yeah.
cookie jar, right? Like when he starts getting
Yes,
bad thoughts, he pulls out the good thoughts. It
yes,
releases them, right? Because now you're telling yourself good stuff, the bad stuff goes away, and you realize, like you said, you have four things: eat, drink, and keep moving, basically.
yeah, and take care of your feet.
Yeah. So, like in the scheme of life, if we told you, like, okay, today, here's all you got to do, most adults would be like, oh, that sounds like a great day.
Yeah, yeah,
But in the
yeah.
moment, it can be spun as being insurmountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you break it down to the rules, and I think that's what I love the most about like trail running, is really there's like in your 100 and below, those are the only four rules. When you get to the 200s, you got to add sleep into that. But when you go back to life, and that's what I love about trail running is like you have a moment in this period of your life where you can just escape reality, because you can turn your phone off. You don't have to, and I tell you, don't respond to text messages. Turn everything on silent. Just focus on you. Get away from all of the draws of everything else in life and just focus on those things. Eat, drink, take care of your feet, move forward. And that's
Oh,
it. That's all you got to do. Because when you come back, life happens all over again, right? The dramas happen, people demanding things of you. You got to do your chores, right? Because you got to do dishes because we need to eat. Those kinds of things. So, it's just in that moment you're able to escape and like really dig deeper into the person, into your core, and just in a way become primal again, and just really embellish in the embrace that Mother Nature gives you unconditionally, and feel the love, feel the connection with yourself, and with the world around you, without the influence of all that social drama that we bring ourselves.
I love it. And what you said there, I was just like, oh, that's so why I've really enjoyed it. Is when you get
Mm-hmm.
primal, right? And
Yeah.
and I'm a rookie. And like I'm nowhere near your level, my friend. So I'm speaking as like a complete novice and would probably do everything wrong right now, but I would at least try. But here's what I know. When we go primal, and no matter how fast or how slow I'm moving, all I can think about is that next breath and that next
Hmm.
step and that next
Hmm.
breath. None of the other shit that was super important in my day really comes to being that important as that next
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
Right. And it gives
Yep.
you perspective to life of like, this is living.
Yeah.
All the stuff on my devices and it comes up, that's not my life. That's just information. I can choose what weight it has in my world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love being about in nature. It's just like she loves you unconditionally. So like in those moments that you're feeling just kind of lonely or alone or you need connection, like go take a walk, you know, go take a hike, go touch the leaf, go pet the bark, go put your hands in the dirt and like it's weird how that connection really radiates back into you, but like when you feel those things and you use those senses, like listening to the birds sing or seeing the sun's rays radiate through the leaves of the trees, or taste the crispiness in the air. You know, it's like when you really, because they teach that a lot in like CBT therapy, for folks that haven't actually like gone through any sort of therapies, but like cognitive therapy
Hmm.
to find those, like use your five senses. And I have found that like even, and this doesn't involve running. You don't have to run. Just go immerse yourself in nature and, or bathe yourself, as they say. And you find that like, it's rejuvenating, it's cleansing, and like leaving your phone away and like just disconnecting from the world and the dramas and the socials and the information and all this stuff. Like, it's amazing how much better you feel when you reconnect with yourself in that primal sense.
Yeah, 100%. Do you run with music or do you go just totally in nature? How do you do that?
I have music that plays like very low in the back. Like I have shocks on, so I'm
Yeah.
able to hear everything that goes around. Um, so I do listen to some, but if I'm talking with somebody, I turn my music off.
Okay.
But it's never so loud that it drowns everything out. Like I want to hear the sound of my feet. Or, you know, if I hear the birds singing like
Yeah.
while I'm out there, or in some cases, like I want to hear if like a cat's gonna like jump out and get me. So,
Right. Yeah.
so
No.
I do have some music, but honestly, it's nothing that's like it's not crazy music. Sometimes it's a book, sometimes
Yeah.
it's podcasts. Um, yeah, so something is lightly going on in the background.
All right. Yeah. So the longest I've ran is 3 hours now. And just, I have, honestly, I have
Beautiful.
no idea what I'm doing. Like when you were like, you have a coach, I was like, oh, yeah, I probably should get one of those. Cause I literally will just get my shoes and sometimes I'll just set my clock and I'll just run for 3 hours. What if I'm on a loop or an out
Yes.
and back? But I don't take any music right now. I'm like kind of, I don't want to say punishing myself, but I want to really just like only be with me. I want no distractions other than like
Hmm.
nature or what's going on in my head.
Hmm.
Pretty
There's
weird,
nothing actually, no, it's not weird. I think it's
right?
actually empowering because they like think about it. A lot of times that we want to disconnect ourselves from things, we put our headphones on.
Mm, maybe.
And people, you know, like a lot of folks don't want to connect with our inner self. Like I mean, I don't blame you. Like a lot of us have been through some level of trauma in our life.
Hmm.
And the hardest thing that we can ever do is face it. And when you are alone with your thoughts, it can be so painful. And so it's not punishment. That's courageous. That's brave. That's bold. That's daring. Like to you know be there with yourself and really connect with yourself and realize that like thoughts are nothing but just thoughts. They can be created,
Yeah.
right? Feelings are real, thoughts are stories, and
Yep.
to be out there and only be with yourself and nobody there to reassure you that like you know everything's okay and it's just you, like that is strength. in and of itself. When we hide from ourselves, like there's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't empower us, right? It just
Yeah.
it kind of takes us away from the reality of like who we truly are at the
Mm.
core. So going out there without music is empowering. It's strong. Like to know that you could go out there for 3 hours and just be with you and nothing else to distract you. That's amazing.
You know what I
Um,
usually, I'll be honest, I write podcasts in my head. I think of new
there you
interviews
go.
I want to do. Yeah, it's for me, I have so many like downloads and just clear, like things become really, really clear when I get to that point. And when people are like, why would you run that for 3 hours? I'm kind of like, why not? Like, I have 3 hours to kill and I wanted
Yeah,
something to do.
yeah, it's cleansing. It's
Yeah.
cleansing. Like, because how often are we sitting here, you come home or you have a lull moment and you could be doing those
Mm.
things like thinking of the next thing, thinking of what's this, or ruminate, like if you're studying for exams, like running things through your brain. But instead we find ourselves scrolling,
Ah,
texting,
yeah.
reading nonsense things. And
Mm.
and so no, I think that's absolutely awesome and a great way to really kind of like, I don't want to say cleanse again, organize yourself.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Because how often are we're tied to so many damn things that it's just like nice to just get that 3 hour break and be like, no, this is me, my
Yeah.
time. I get to organize my thoughts. I get to come back to you in a cleaner sense, a happier sense, one where I'm not flooded with all these, whatever running through my mind, and I can pay full attention to the things around me that I care about.
That's so huge. I can pay full attention and emotionally, I can be where I am, right? Because think about how, like, I caught myself the other day. I had some business stuff going on, so I'm replaying these conversations in my head. And how do I want to counter this, or what do I want to do? I want to accept it, not accept it. And
Mhm.
Andrea, my wife, said something, and like my response was completely like shorter than it should have been, not what she deserved, and it wasn't because of anything she asked. It was because I was not where I was, right? I was still in my head somewhere else. But you're right, like pushing yourself this hard in exercise, when you come back, you've gotten rid of all that other stuff.
Yes, yes, and you're able to just process things a lot
Mhm.
fuller, and then give people the time they deserve around you.
Which is why she tells me to go for a run.
I hear it. I hear it from my boyfriend too. Like Chris will tell me he's like, I felt so bad because I'm pretty strong 99% of the time, but I had a really vulnerable moment like a week or two ago. First of all, I'm still menstruating, so like my cycle
Oh
still
yeah.
comes and my hormones will rage.
Yep.
And like he's so kind, he's so patient. And like I had just like a sad moment, like I just needed to cry. And like he's like, well, it is a rest day for you, so this is probably not helping either.
That's the truth. No, that's good. And
True.
it's good when you're around people that recognize that for you, right? And give you that space and
Yeah.
don't make you feel guilty for taking that time away from them, because your next time with them is going to be so much better served.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And having that support to know that like and having partnerships, and when I say partnerships, I don't mean like intimate relationships, but just relationships period, with
Hmm.
friends, supporters, loves, etc. But having that kind of relationship with folks who support you in these things, knowing that like this out, if you will, this form of exercise or this necessary means of relief brings not only you back in a greater sense, but also fulfills them to
Mm.
receive you in a healthier state of mind.
Yeah, I love it. Tasha,
Yeah.
as we get ready to wrap up, what are some of your future goals and aspirations you're holding for yourself?
Oh, well, first of all, the closest one I have is running Tahoe 200. I just want to finish it. It's going to be a journey. So 200 miles over the course of 105 hours. It'll be the longest distance I've traveled on foot in the shortest amount of time. I've done 150 miles. Like I've done some other things in my life, but to do 200 miles in 4.5 days. But I know not only do I have a crew that's coming to support me, my dad and my stepmom are going to be there. First time for them to
Awesome.
see me in a run event. Yeah. And then, I work for Destination Trail as one of their medics. So I know so many folks at this race, and I know that the love and support I'm truly grateful for in advance. That folks are going to be there to help guide me through on this journey.
And when is the
So
run in Tahoe 200? When is that?
June 13th starts on
Okay.
Friday the 13th.
Ooh, not by coincidence, I'm assuming.
I'm here for it. It's my lucky day.
Awesome.
Um,
So that's your preparations now is kind of gearing up for that.
yeah, yeah. So that's the biggest event that I've got for the year. My next goal is actually next weekend. I'm doing Rim 3. So rim to rim to rim on the 22nd. So I'm super stoked. It'll be my first time doing that. That's a bucket list item. So Chris and I are going to head down and do that. But beyond Tahoe, I don't really have anything set in mind. There's a lot more traveling I'm going to be doing, working with the races. I definitely want to get back to heavier weightlifting after this, but we'll see what comes. I'm just kind of leaving doors open for opportunities as they arise. But yeah, definitely some more travel, some more adventures, or as I call it, frolicking in the forest. Um, so many, many more things will be happening. It's just, I'm not sure what yet.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? We don't have to have it all planned. We just got to show up.
Hmm. Listen to your heart.
Yeah, I love it. Tasha, it's been an honor to have you on our show and to share your story. Where can our community follow you and support you along these journeys?
So Instagram is at Wonder Lost Unicorn. So Wonder, Wonder, Lost, Lost, Unicorn, because I'm always wondering where I am because I tend to be lost. I also work as a trail race medic for Destination Trail. So that'll be my other page, Thor Trail Race Medic. My trail name is Thor. So I'll be working that page a little bit more frequently this summer as the races come up, and you'll see it more active over the next few weeks with the Arizona 300 coming up. And and then I'm an ambassador for Shocks. So if you guys want some discounts on some rad headgear, earphones, I'll send you the link for those. And I'm also an ambassador for Runner for some of the coolest hats out there.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm also an athlete with Warrior Trail Foundation. So, which is a veteran-based ultra trail or trail, I should say, running community. So we support first responders and trail runners. So if you're looking for a coach, Jared,
I
you
know
might
I
be able to
need
find
one,
a way
huh?
to get you in there. Yeah. So, but research Warrior Trail Foundation. It's a fantastic foundation for our veterans to help them redefine their purpose.
Mm.
So, and then yeah, so that's where you can find me is if I'm not frolicking on the trails.
And it's a great segue because we actually have Chris from the Warrior Trail Foundation coming up in 2 weeks with us.
Yay. Oh, Chris is a gem. I'm excited to see what you guys have to talk about. He is amazing.
It's good to hear. Tasha, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an honor, my friend.
Oh, it's such a true honor to be here. I'm grateful. And thank you, Jared, for having me.